I'm Larry Lee with Brownfield Ag News. John Holyvote from the Dairy Business Association with us today. It seems like we have a bit of a problem with local regulations, specifically with 3 towns in Langlade County making rules that may be in excess of what the state law permits as far as road regulations. What's going on up there?
Well, Larry, this has actually been going on for a little while, actually. We've had a handful of towns in Langlade County that have been looking at ordinances that would deal with requiring bonding amounts for people who would be hauling manure on their roads. This, like I said, is probably a couple-year-old problem, but there's a new iteration of ordinances being passed in a handful of these towns. So we're definitely keeping an eye on it. Like you said, the question is whether or not they have the legal authority to do what they're attempting to do, and also, whether that's even the best solution for what they're trying to accomplish.
So, as you look at these local ordinances, does it seem to you that the ordinance itself is not legal based on state law with what was passed in Implements of Husbandry a few years back?
Well, there's definitely a question. They're going at it a different way. They're requiring bonding. So that's a different route than the normal Implement of Husbandry ordinance. So the question is, are they opening themselves up for a legal challenge or not? But even more basic than that, I assume these towns are just concerned about the condition of their local roads, and I understand that. But it's not clear to me that what they're trying to do here with these ordinances actually gets at that problem. Some of the best advocates for rural road funding out there are farmers and ag groups. We want to work with our towns to make sure that they have adequate funding. Furthermore, there's already existing law that says that if a farmer or anyone else for that matter damages the road, they must pay to repair that road. And their failure to do so could expose them to additional damages under state law. So there's a mechanism in place under existing law to deal with damage. So the question is, why do this instead? And at the same time, maybe alienate or harm those people, your local residents, your local farmers, who might be some of your best allies in trying to secure more funding for your roads.
Have you reached out to the townships?
So I have talked with 2 of the 3 towns that have looked at ordinances like this in the past. And one of those 3 I have not had any communication with, but certainly there's been back and forth with those towns, and I'm sure there will continue to be dialogue. I hope that local farmers, different ag organizations, and even maybe the Wisconsin Towns Association might take more of an active role in seeing if we can diffuse this situation and come to a better outcome for everybody.
Do you think the Towns Association will agree with your perspective on this?
I think none of us want to see conflict between local government and the agricultural community, especially from the town's perspective. Most of our rural towns, that's where their tax base is, that's who their residents are. They want to work with their constituents, not be combative with them. So I think there's definitely, hopefully, room for compromise and agreement between the 2 parties here.
Hypothetically, let's say this gets a court challenge. The way it appears, these town ordinances specifically focus on farmers hauling manure. Wouldn't that be discriminatory on its own instead of, say, against all people hauling over a certain weight?
Well, that's certainly one of the challenges they face in trying to enforce these. In general, is sort of the selective nature of what they've identified. And you raise a good point, which is there are other kinds of agriculture occurring in that area that requires heavy equipment. There's other kind of commerce in that area that requires heavy equipment. So if the roads are the concern, why target just manure hauling? If instead you're trying to target 1 or 2 specific farms that you don't happen to like that are in your area, that's not something that typically you'd be allowed to do through this method, right? There's permitting and other things involved for large farms. So if you're trying to get around the normal avenues of regulating large farms by doing this instead, that's a problem.
What is next for your organization and this issue? You have some work in progress here?
We're definitely going to be talking with the local governments. We'll also be talking with the Towns Association and also doing some outreach to farmers that might be impacted by these regulations to make sure that, if at all possible, we can come to an agreement and avoid further issues related to this. And if not, we'll have to see what else can be accomplished by other means.
I'm Larry Lee with Brownfield Ag News. John Holyvolt from the Dairy Business Association.